All right, Michelle, talking about the backup quarterback room. Sam Heward is gone, but one name that is still an option is Brandan Rose. And Brandan Rose gained a lot of fanfare with his performance against BYU. It was the best the Utah offense looked after Cam Rising went down, and even when Cam Rising was back and not healthy against Arizona State. So Rose performed well there. It'd been a long, even Bryson Barnes 2 years ago at spring ball, we're talking about, is he going to beat out Bryson Barnes to be the backup quarterback? He was at the time, then dealt with that injury before the season started. So there has been so much made of Brandan Rose despite limited amounts of time seeing him on the field. But he showed some heart against BYU. The Houston performance wasn't what you hoped, but he knows this program well. Sure, the offense is a little different, but when it comes to bringing Brandan Rose back, I would absolutely be down for it. The more competition you get into this room, the better.
I would say the one issue and problem with that, and the reason why he's probably still sitting there, is he's not going to be useful to anyone this year with the injury that he sustained. Mm-hmm. It's going to be about the end of this next coming season before he might be ready to go. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in theory, yes, if he was healthy, I think he would be a great option. But this year, this is going to sound so cruel and mean, and I don't mean it that way, but he's dead weight. He's someone you're carrying on your roster that you can't use because he's going to be busy rehabbing and getting back from a Liz Frank injury, and those are gnarly. Those take some time. You know, we saw that with Gianni Paul. I believe Landry Barton was also a Liz Frank injury, and he wasn't quite himself, so it's just – the problem with Brandan Rose is he's not going to be useful to anyone for a whole season. So he's going to be sitting in redshirting or taking a medical redshirt. Do I think Utah would let him come back and get better and maybe pick up the offense? Sure. But he's not going to be pushing anyone this year. He's not going to be adding to the competition. So, I mean, realistically, Utah's still looking at perhaps needing one more person to bring in to be that kind of guy. But it's not going to be Brandan.
Made a great point. I obviously we all remember when he got hurt, but I had forgotten about the severity of the injury and that the fact that he is going to miss that much time. So, and it's really unfortunate for him because then he's going to, if he doesn't get signed this year and just spends it rehabbing, then he has to come back next year, and it's going to be the same thing, just trying to get recruited with such limited sample size and playing time. So wish Brandan Rose the best, but based on the timeline of when he would eventually be available, I think you're right. I think it doesn't really make a lot of sense for Utah to bring him back because at that point, when you look at the other options, was Brandan Rose probably a better option than Isaac Wilson last year? I think yes. I think that was better than Isaac Wilson. I think that was proven once he got the opportunity. But is Isaac a better option when he would have been learning Jason Beck's new system than just throwing Brandan Rose out there who spent all offseason recovering and rehabbing? I agree with that. And obviously Utah's added other quarterbacks. They got the Oklahoma transfer in there too. Wyatt Becker is coming up to Salt Lake City. Michelle, I would still love to see this team add a veteran backup. What do you think about the backup quarterback room right now behind Devin Dampier?
I think ideally you would want to bring in a veteran quarterback. The problem is, and again, I think fans are having such a hard time understanding what's realistic and what's not. Veteran guy is not going to want to sit behind someone. They ran into that with Cam Rising. They ran into that a little bit when they decided to pick up Devin Dampier. And obviously we're assuming he's going to be the starter and going to be the guy that takes the reins. That's maybe not known for sure, but logic says that's where that's heading. And if you can pick that up as a fan or as a reporter, guys in the portal that are looking for their opportunity to start can also pick up on that. And so it doesn't make Utah a great choice. And for that matter, that it means a lot of programs are not a great choice for these guys. And that's on the flip side. I'm talking about, the reality check that fans maybe need to have when thinking about who they want to bring in or what the ideal backup quarterback is going to be for a program. On the flip side, these quarterbacks that are entering the portal also need a reality check.
Yes.
This is a position where one guy starts and you might have to suck it up and be the backup. And I've talked with a couple of people, that are in the game and either coach or recruit or cover other teams. And my thing is, I think eventually we start seeing the number of quarterbacks hitting the portal drastically drop, because there is going to be this realization that there's only so many spots, and my luck is going to be a lot better if I stay and develop and learn a system really well and have a year or two to be really good in it, than if I'm constantly bouncing around trying to be the starter, but nobody picks me up as the starter because I don't have any experience to show. In comparison to other guys that are hitting the portal. So again, there's just this whole interesting dynamic of things moving around, switching, changing. Again, I think we'll start seeing that quarterback spot really settle down. I think you'll start seeing teams kind of keep their quarterbacks and develop them through, because the realization is going to hit that unless you can show something really great, you're not going to get picked up and get the money that you think you want to get, or there's just going to be a lot of competition to try and get those few spots. So it's kind of a two-way street there. Again, yes, I think ideally, what program wouldn't want an experienced backup? But is that really realistic? Unless you have unlimited buku bucks where you can pacify someone to sit on the bench and wait their turn, I just don't think it's terribly realistic. Ideal, but not realistic.
You're right. It's something that's very challenging. You do see other programs find a decent veteran backup, but it is hard when, like you mentioned, we expect Devin Dampier to be the starter for this team. The fact that he is reuniting with his former offensive coordinator, I think that scares a lot of veteran QBs away. Even if Utah could find someone just who has college playing experience, and I guess they have that a little bit, and Dallin Engelman is the one backup there, but I'd love it if they could find someone who at least has some, even if it's not Power 4, Group of 5. But you are absolutely right, Michelle. That is easier said than done, because that guy in the portal, he's more than likely looking to play. He's probably not looking to sit behind anyone. Also, you mentioned something really interesting when you brought up that, do you expect Devin Dampier to be the starter? We both do. Of the backups on Utah's roster, who do you think has the best chance to push or compete with him for the starting job? Or if not that, who would you give the inside track to the backup job to as we sit here on January 7th?
Oh man, that is a great question. That is a fabulous question. I haven't thought that hard about it, to be honest. You know what? I need a little spring ball in my system to kind of see what Utah's working with. I think from a logistical standpoint, I think the hope is that the kid from Oklahoma is the one that competes and is the backup.
Yeah, Brandan Zurbrugg.
I've heard. I think they really want to avoid at all costs putting Isaac Wilson in if they have to at this. I think the idea is to give him the time he needs to learn, if he's willing to stick it out and do that. There is a spring transfer window too. I don't know what's going to happen to that quarterback room one more time after spring. But I think in a perfect world, that is kind of what you do. Isaac and the two freshman quarterbacks get to sit back and kind of learn and absorb and get better without the pressure of actually having to perform out on the field, which is a luxury that Isaac did not get this last year. And I think it really affected him. So I think that year sitting would be really good for him. But at the same time, if you have someone show you something that the others aren't, how can you justify? So whether that's Isaac, whether that's Bird Ficklin, or Wyatt Becker, I'm curious to see how all these guys perform. It, for the most part, is kind of a clean slate outside of Dampier having obviously the experience in Jason Beck's system, but the rest of them, it's pretty wide open. Nobody has really an advantage over any of the others. They're all having to learn it. To me, it's may the best man win. We'll just have to see what happens this spring.
We will. I think the only other name I'll bring up, and I'd forgot him earlier because it's just still funny he's back on this roster, is Nate Johnson. And I know we've heard about him being a receiver / QB. Look, Devin Dampier is an incredible athlete. This offense is going to be tailored towards his running ability first, then his ability to air it out, at least for what I believe. So Nate Johnson's one heck of a runner of the football. If he can cut down on the ball security, that's the biggest thing. The plays he still made in 22, 23, and even last year, he was a backup at an SEC school in Vanderbilt that ended up being bowl eligible. I right now like him best to be, if Dampier got hurt, him to be the guy who goes in, but there are a lot of intriguing options outside of him that we brought up. And if he's playing great at receiver and if he's able to earn an opportunity in a spot there, then he might see more time there and they might not want to bring him in as the backup. So a lot to be determined in just with this Utah football team in general, honestly. And we got a long time till we get to the season, even spring ball still obviously a couple months out.